So welcome, Dr. Chandana. Thank you for coming out to do this talk show with me. Thank you for taking out some time today. And before we move forward, could you briefly introduce yourself to the audience?
Uh, Hi, thank you for the opportunity to have a chat. Um, I'm Chandana. I'm currently located in Vancouver, in Canada. I'm a CIO for Lifeguard Digital Health. It's a software solutions company which is in the domain of opioid crisis and supporting it mainly, and also other solutions such as senior care.
Okay, that's great. That's awesome. And that company is located in Canada, in where you are located, or in a different place?
Um, The company is headquartered in Vancouver, in
Okay.
Canada. It's the West Coast of Canada, and I'm also located here currently.
Okay, that's great. That's awesome. What was the motivation regarding starting this company?
This company was originally started by the founder, Mr. Jeff Hardy. He is a very successful serial entrepreneur who's based in Vancouver. It was really motivated by his own lived experiences. He lost someone very precious, and that motivated him to think about how can we solve an important problem, which is the opioid crisis in the public health domain, and how can we do this with technology.
Mm.
So he did go to BCIT, which is also part of the learning process. So looking at technology and how it can work uh, in creating digital solutions which are impactful. So it
Okay.
was just a brainchild, the company,
Mhm.
and we all were really attracted to it because of his drive and his passion, and also um, the commitment he has in this domain. And that's what brought me into it,
Mhm.
into the company.
Okay, great. And let's talk about your role in this company. So you've mentioned you work as a CIO of this company. Could you share a little bit more details about that role?
Um, I more came into the company as in the role of combined CTO and CIO. So I was I navigated from that role, and from there I have moved into currently becoming as Chief Security and Informatics Officer. So I'm looking at new ways of improving the solutions as such, and also enhancing the solutions, in particular relating to privacy and security in this domain and compliance, which is very significant. It is a public health domain. We have definitely many compliances to look at. And it's also a very sensitive domain. So that's my primary role at the moment. And mainly it is a research and development, looking at the progress and how these new technologies can be imbibed into our solutions,
Mhm.
um, such as artificial intelligence, IoT, and other pieces. I'm also a specialist in the blockchain and health domain, so that's also an important factor to look after the privacy and security of digital health applications in particular.
Mhm.
It is a very new concept in the health sector. It's being used in different number of different ways. And in this sector, particularly in the opioid crisis domain, it's a very sensitive structure as well. So
Correct.
we're looking at different ways in which technology can enhance the solutions so that it enhances people's lives.
Great. And previously, we have spoken about your other positions as well. So I'm aware that you hold three more positions. So let's touch upon them one by one. So one of those positions is at UN. Could you shed a little bit more light about that?
At the UN, I'm a digital health expert in space and global health area, which is an intersection of space and public health domain in the UN, where many of the member states look at different technologies which are currently used in the space area, to convert those technologies into public health sphere and how this can be used. For example, remote sensing,
Mm-hmm.
those sort of technologies, which are extremely useful. And the other side of that position is I'm also representing Australia in the United Nations, as I'm from Australia, from Melbourne. So that also gives me a little bit trying to look at these technologies. How can these be used peacefully in public health? It's a very interesting and growing area,
Mm-hmm.
so that many of those technologies can actually be used, including in the artificial intelligence, GIS, remote sensing in particular.
Great.
Particularly in connecting remote areas in Australia, particularly the distances where
Mm-hmm.
it actually matters.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And another one of your roles is into World Health Organization.
Mhm.
So let's talk about that a little bit more.
So I'm one of the experts who has been part of the newly formed WHO's Digital Technical Advisory Board, reporting to that
Mm-hmm.
in the roster of experts. So that is a new venture of the World Health Organization, trying to leverage digital health technologies,
Mm-hmm.
which can be leveraged across the globe, and how these can be used. If there is a technology that is being useful in one part of the world, how can that be leveraged into another? And similar. So this is a newly formed entity the last 2 years, and that's my role in there.
Okay,
Um,
that's great. And lastly, you work as a professor as well, is that right?
yes, I am a continuing professor in digital health and informatics in
Mm-hmm.
Australia. It's a continuous role that I've had uh, probably 15 years now. So
Mm-hmm.
this has been an ongoing role, and I continue doing that. Although I'm located currently in Vancouver,
Mm-hmm.
I am continuing the role online, and we're a university. We also practice what we preach. So we
Mm-hmm.
actually teach the digital health, and we also use online methods very
Mm-hmm.
efficiently, and also AR, VR. So those, that's where
That's
I work.
great. That's awesome. And how about time management? So, handling four different roles, how difficult it is to get around them on a day-to-day life?
Um, Efficiency in time management is something that is a requirement. This is
Yeah.
not, that's nothing that you can compromise. There are occasional, very, very occasional times when things collide. But
Mm-hmm.
in the last 10 years, probably I have probably had that occasion once or twice. So it is very important to look at your calendar and make sure that everything is answered. So spending some time every day for each of these, looking at all your roles and connecting it. Okay, maybe that role does not require my 1 hour in the day, and that can be used for something else.
Mm-hmm.
And that's an important thing to, as you grow and grow in with successes or failures in life. These are things you learn. And for me, I'm a very structured person, so I tend to work in time zones very efficiently. Um, at the moment, it's a very interesting concept because it's day and night that I work.
Yeah, that's true.
So I need to allocate my time efficiently so that I don't get burnt out.
Mm-hmm.
So you do take the breaks in between and make sure that you sleep in between,
Mm-hmm.
uh, as everyone else.
Yeah. Okay, great. How about your university? So, which university did you go to, and what was your major?
I have done various degrees. So, I've done a double degree with business, health sciences, and information systems,
Mm-hmm.
and I've got a couple of master's degrees, an MBA, and a PhD.
Okay.
So I've actually done different things from different universities. So
Mm-hmm.
all the universities I have been to are in Melbourne. So I am from Melbourne in Australia. So Victoria, Marmite, University of Melbourne. So that's all the universities that I have been. And
Mm-hmm.
I have also been teaching as a professor. My career has evolved from different universities. So about 6 or 7 universities over my academic career.
Okay.
Um, my academic career has always been balanced with other things I do. So I've always worked in the industry while I've been a professor all my life.
Mm-hmm.
And I have also been working when I was studying as a student. So in some ways, that balance has helped me today to balance
Mm-hmm.
different roles as well.
Okay, great. I'm just curious, what was the topic of your thesis when you were doing your PhD?
Very interesting question. It was one of the areas that I did this as an applied project in Australian public hospitals.
Mm-hmm.
So it was examining IoT devices and how they translate and how the impact is there in the public health and in the hospitals,
Mm-hmm.
how it affects the people who are in there, um, not only doctors but orderlies to the scrubs to the nurses to including the impact it has on regular work
Okay.
and so on. There's been very interesting experiences during that time
Mm-hmm.
because the PhD was a pioneering venture into putting in IoT into Australian hospitals. So until then, that technology did not actually percolate into the hospitals, and
Mm-hmm.
it took almost a decade of work
Wow.
to actually implement, look at it, and whether it works or not, and then actually understanding what needs to be plugged, let's
Mm-hmm.
say, and what are the gaps. And during that 10 years, also the technology has evolved as well
Mm-hmm.
during the time. So there's been changes from the time I began the work in one hospital to another where it was implemented in a different time.
Mm-hmm.
It was a lot more easier to do it the second time round. It was accepted by them.
Mm-hmm.
Today, it's accepted everywhere. But
Right.
if you think about 2014 when I completed it,
Mm-hmm.
that was prior to that from 2007 to 14 when this occurred. It was a pioneering venture in
Yeah,
digital health
absolutely.
altogether.
Yeah. Wow, that was, definitely an interesting time when you made that happen. That's great.
Mm.
And so this is for usually people who are starting out new businesses or newcomers. What would you say is a basic skill set required by them to start a business?
I would, from my opinion, you need to be, obviously, you need to have the drive and the passion. You need to be
Mm-hmm.
more than anything else. It's the commitment to that domain that you pick up.
Mm-hmm.
You should have enough, sufficient knowledge about the problem and what are you trying to solve,
Yeah.
and would you be passionate enough to do this. It should not be an exercise in doing something that you do not understand or you do not like just for the sake of building a business. It has to be
Mm-hmm.
something in it for you so that it is by like bringing up a child. You have to have a stake in it, and you really need to have more than the money and
Mm-hmm.
the ability to do that and make money. Obviously, every business stays for there is that purpose, but you should have some intrinsic purpose in there. Otherwise, it's not going to drive you or motivate you ultimately. So,
Yeah,
as
that's
I've
very true.
mentioned, Jeff Hardy, he had a drive and a passion to do it. At the same time, he also knew there is a problem to solve here. How can I make lives better?
Mm-hmm.
How can I save the lives of people, overdosing and prevention? So that's a cost that you would commit to.
Mm-hmm.
And similarly, I mean, for me, using technology to enhance public health, this has been my entire life. What
Mm-hmm.
I studied, what I researched on, and looking at. I'm very passionate about technology, but at the same time, technology for technology's sake is not my passion.
Mm-hmm.
It is the application of that in public health and how it can enhance the well-being of others.
Correct. That's great. And So 2020 as well as 20, we're not sure how and when the situation is going to improve. But still, a lot of new businesses have been starting up this year, even last year as well as this year. So, according to you, how difficult would it be for newcomers to start a business given this pandemic situation?
Um, Over the last year, I think there has been a lot of, it's not only in Canada, in other countries as well, there's been a lot of incentives for small businesses if they wanted to thrive and start off. It is depending on how you reinvent yourself
Mm-hmm.
to, not being able to go into an office to working at home and online. And I think many of the people who have been successful
Mm-hmm.
over that period, in even during the pandemic and after, beyond that, has almost mastered this technically. If I were to take a completely different domain of telehealth, telehealth was being, uh, it was still an enigma to many people, and people did not want to do that many, many times. And how do you take the pulse, and how do you actually talk to the doctor? There's so many important criteria to that.
Mm-hmm.
But given that there are technologies that exist which can do all of these, and in your living room, became very apparent during the pandemic, and there is accelerated uptake. And given that situation, there is opportunity for many small businesses to feed into that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there is, I would like to think of 2020 and 2021 as a time for change and time for opportunity, and bringing in new talent and new businesses in there. So I think it's a time of opportunity, and we should leverage on that.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you on that one. So, going along your career path and progressing through this journey of your life through different careers, through different degrees, and then working as a CIO at a company, what would you say were some of your most successful moments or some of the most successful milestones that you cleared along the way?
As I mentioned before, I think the biggest success that I would attribute my whole career to would be the pioneering venture that I did in Australia. So
Mm-hmm.
that really began a career and a pathway for me. Until then, I was still struggling to see how would I do this.
Mm-hmm.
I have the drive, I have a vision, but how do I achieve this with all the balancing all my priorities and so on. So I think that was perhaps one of the biggest milestones.
Mm-hmm.
The second milestone I would attribute to is the opportunity that I got to get into the United Nations, and looking at meeting these people who are, the group that I'm with also has people from the World Health Organization, also from NASA,
Mm-hmm.
and the chief medical officer, and so on. So that has been the second milestone where I actually found that many of it was, for me, that was a humbling experience, because I found a group of interested, committed individuals who have the passion and drive at the same time, who are not looking at anything beyond that, giving their time and their energy to public health enhancement, to looking at technology and how it grows, and really the STEM career, science and technology people, at the
Mm-hmm.
same time not bringing in limelight to themselves, which is, to me, that was my next milestone where I kind of understood, okay, this is where I needed to go. And that this is, that for me, I've learned a lot from that exercise.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to be thankful for the people who nominated me into that group, and also become making me part of the group as their peers. When I was a lot, we're talking about a decade ago when I started that position. So those two were milestones. Becoming a professor perhaps would be the other milestone that I would have. And I've kind of understood my commitment increases
Mm-hmm.
to the next generation and the students once you become a professor.
Yeah.
Until then, you sort of think of yourself as part of the academic system, and you lecture and so on. Your responsibility and your increases with that role. And I think
Definitely.
that's been my milestones.
Okay, that's amazing. That's like an amazing journey that you've had so far. And going along that journey, could you share an important lesson that you learned from life?
One of the very important lessons that I've learned, particularly after I moved a few years ago, I moved temporarily into Canada from Australia. And during that journey and processes, it is quite difficult for anyone to move from one country to the other after a long time, particularly.
Definitely.
Um, what I've learned is you need to learn to unlearn everything you learn
Hmm.
and relearn.
Yeah.
And if you do that consistently over time in life, I think that that would be your success. Um, the minute you become rigid and you don't shed the shell that you have, and you're defending yourself, you don't learn anything new, and that won't help you succeed. So it is more about unlearn, relearn. So and every context it's quite different.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a great lesson. Um, and what would you say? What's the thing that keeps you moving forward in life?
The only thing that keeps moving me is how can technology enhance public health and well-being. And that's been my whole career and life, and it continues to be. So digital health in all different ways, and how it can be. That's what keeps me awake every morning, and looking at different ways of doing it. And the second thing is how can we engage the people themselves in doing this? So
Hmm.
it's not only a company that produces things today, it is about engaging and the lived experiences of people that matter, the people who can pull in their resources in various different ways. Engaging and working with people is, I would say, that would be the answer to that.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And considering your current position as a CIO, what would you say is the best and worst part of being a CIO of a company?
I think the best and worst part is the same, literally. You have a role that needs to have almost a helicopter view of the whole situation, and you need to be watching, if things go wrong, or if everything is in compliance, if almost everyone's working with each other in a different. There are occasional frustrations, there are occasional happinesses, and I think they're all equally important.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And so, uh, hearing your story so far and hearing about your schedule, I can definitely say that you have a very busy life, day-to-day life. So I would like to know, what do you do when you're not working, when you have your free time?
Good question, and it's very interesting in today's context. But naturally, without the pandemic, and normally without that, I'm an active person. I have um, also a very big passion in dancing. So I do have that as a. It's not only a hobby. I'm also active in theater. So
That's great.
it's been my passion.
Hmm.
But lately, obviously, I do try to continue that by doing online the things that we do. I'm part of a choreographer, a company that has created the Shamak group, which has been part of, um, it's kind of revolutionary concepts and bringing in different fusion sort of new thinking into dance.
Hmm.
The group has been part of my life for a long time, and also that's part of my life. As far as the theater, I've been very active in the Melbourne theater groups, but unfortunately, that's currently not possible. But eventually, we'll get back to that, when I can and where I can. I do write scripts for movies, and those sort of I do have
Wow.
that as a passion as well, script
Okay.
writing and you know, theater. That's the other side of me and other side of my life.
Yeah, that's an amazing other side of your life. I'm surprised that you're able to do so much in very little time. Dancing, script writing, theater. I don't think anybody could imagine that somebody at your position would find the time to be able to do all of that.
I think some of these things actually motivate you to do different things. So you get motivations from everything you do. And that's
Yeah,
a firm believer in that. You learn from everything and anyone.
yeah,
So that's one of the main areas in entrepreneurship as well. So you learn new things from everyone.
yeah. That's great. That's awesome. Okay, so now we have reached the short rapid fire section of this interview. So I'm going to ask you short questions. Please try to keep your answers short as well.
Okay.
And if you come across any question that you don't like, you can say skip, and I'll move on to the next one.
Sure.
Okay, sounds good. So first question is, are you an iPhone person or an Android person?
Apple.
Coffee or tea?
Tea.
Okay. What's the first thing you do when you wake up in the morning?
Look out of the window. I need to see light.
That's nice. Three things no one knows about you.
Nothing.
Okay. Um, what's the craziest thing someone has done for you?
Wake me up in the middle of the night at 12 midnight and wish me for my birthday.
Okay. And that's sweet. What's the one thing that you would like to change about yourself?
Sometimes just only momentarily, I think maybe I should stop being hyperactive,
Okay.
but it's only momentary.
Okay. Um, what's your spirit animal?
Spirit animal line.
Okay. A rumor about you that you wish were true.
I'm not even sure about that one,
Okay.
or really.
Would you like, if I rephrase the question, would you like to start a rumor about you, like the best actor or theater performer?
That wouldn't be. Uh, I mean, I've had awards as well, so that wouldn't be a rumor. But
Okay.
I wouldn't. Oh, probably I went to the Mars.
Yeah. And that's a good rumor to start with. What's the easiest way to piss you off?
Disrespect.
Hmm. Um, what's the one thing that you own that you wish you didn't?
What do I own that I wish I didn't? A lot of um, legacy technologies, I would say.
Okay, maybe they will become valuable if they stay as legacy for a very long time.
That's I'm hoping that, but I think technology doesn't turn to that way. I mean, it
Mhm.
can become a fossil, probably, maybe.
Hmm.
I don't know.
Okay. So thank you, Dr. Chandana. Thank you for taking out some time to do this interview with me, and thank you for sharing glimpses of your life, of your background, of how you started your career, how you did so many degrees and PhDs, and how you made it so far. So thank you for doing this with me today.
Thank you.